It's 5 to 9. We'll start exactly at 9 o'clock in 5 minutes. I've received actually some interesting information, which we'll go over today.
Good.
Yeah, so
You saw the news press story, I take it.
I did see that, yes. But actually, information not related to that, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the update because I'm totally confused on the legal front.
Yeah, I've been getting a lot of that from a lot of folks.
Yeah,
But not surprisingly, because it's confusing and
Yeah.
complicated. And I'm not sure there's an answer that reflects what has happened in the past. I think there's a lot of sort of new things going on here that people haven't dealt with in the past. So interesting. But I'll try to explain it all what the relationships are between the various legal proceedings. I think
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
people.
yeah, I think we need to get something out because there's an awful lot of confusion.
Right. Okay, we definitely can do that.
Okay.
Good morning, Ann.
Morning.
Mm.
The article made it seem very positive.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah. So that's good for perception, I think. Even
Well, it is very positive, actually.
good. Maybe I should ask this later, but can South Seas, can they do any kind of work toward their end goal if they're appealing? Like if the ruling is under appeal, can they still continue to?
If you're asking, the answer is the decision of the judge is the law of the land until it's reversed by an appellate court.
Okay, so they wouldn't make sense. Yeah.
Good morning, John. Good morning, Tony.
Good morning, David. Good to see you. I'm not.
Did you hear that? I said.
Ken, I noticed that the agenda has January 14th on the top of it. And I think it's February.
Oops.
You hear, oops.
Yeah.
All right, it's 9 o'clock. I'd like to welcome everyone to the February meeting of the Captiva Community Panel. The first thing we'll do is we'll take a roll call. And I'll go through the names. I'm David Mintz. I'm the president. I'm here. Bruce McDonald.
Present.
Tony Lappy.
Here.
Sam Stillwell Youngquist. She's not here. Marguerite.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good morning.
Ken Suarez. He's
I'm here, thanks. Good morning.
Good morning, John Wade,
Here.
Mike Bennett,
Here?
Ann Brady,
Morning.
John Jensen,
Here, David.
Linda Laird. She told me she would not be here today. I forgot where she told me she'd be. And I think that's everybody. And we clearly have a quorum. With everybody's approval, I've asked Jay Brown to attend the meetings because I would like to have our sewer committee be a standing committee of the panel so that we don't have to reach out to him intermittently, asking him to appear on the panel if there's some new information that he has. And since the wastewater committee's been around for as long as we can all remember, I think, and we want to get this done, I thought it would be a good thing just to have that as a standing committee. Does everybody agree with that?
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Jay.
Thank you. And I see Sandy's still welcome, but is here. And so we clearly have a quorum. The first thing I would ask people to do is if they've had a chance to review the minutes. If there are any changes, to please suggest them. Otherwise, could we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move it.
All right.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, before we approve it, Ken Goodham, could you just correct the misspelling of Tony's name on the first page?
I will do that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there any further discussion on the minutes? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? None. Minutes pass. First order on the agenda is our update from our department. I've been advised that the sheriff's department is going to, at various times, rotate who's going to give the report so that our community gets a sense of all the deputies that we have out here and the different representatives of the sheriff department. And I think today we have Deputy Christine Zumbrum.
Yes.
Okay, so Christine, if you'd like to give the report, that would be great.
Okay. Since the last meeting, there really not much to report, nothing notable. Something that we did want to remind everyone is obviously with spring break approaching, we want to secure our properties, whether that be, bicycles, kayaks, just your property in general. If you have cameras, I think it would be a really good idea at this point to make sure that they're working because, they can be really helpful, not for just your property, but if something happens in the area. One of the main things I think that we are still experiencing here is the parking issues. It has gotten better since Blind Pass parking lot has opened. But of course, with that opening, it has also brought in a lot more people. They're back fishing on the bridge but it has helped as far as the parking roadside at the community, at the residences right there at the beginning of Captiva. So that has helped. FWC is still doing an amazing job monitoring fishing violations, and even them being there helps just the presence so people aren't parking illegally, because they've been parking illegally there and it's really kind of dangerous. There's the curve right there. So but that has gotten better since the parking lot has opened. Parking is also just a huge issue just in Captiva. We've experienced it really on Andy Rossi really bad. That is something that we have really started to address again. We know that contractors need to be there after those last two storms. It amped up again with contractor parking, but as Chief Powell would probably agree, it's just become an issue. They're there all day and it just makes like one lane. So it's not safe for emergency vehicles and it's just not safe for people walking or biking. So that is something that we have started doing a little bit more with the verbal warnings, warning tickets, and then of course parking tickets have also been issued. The only other thing I wanted to I think this is an agenda item for you guys, but on February 1st, I did submit a request for action to Lee County DOT to see if they could put up the no parking signs in that area just south of Jensen's, because that is also a huge area where people love to, especially at sunset, pull up on that sand right there at the curve and watch the sunset, which is I mean, one, a problem, and two, also very dangerous because it's a curve right there and people are going around and they can't see. So I didn't realize you guys, I think someone else may have called as well or sent one. I didn't know, but I took it upon myself to do that, as well as to send a separate one inquiring about the sand that's falling in the roadway, because I also feel that that's causing pedestrians to have to walk in the road and is also a safety issue. So just so you know, that was done on February 1st. I haven't heard anything. I don't know if I will, but it has been addressed. And that's all I have.
Are there
Great.
any questions for Christine?
No,
Christine, I've been receiving a couple of calls about the cones that are along that Jensen's curve and that first stretch on Twin Waters. And I was told by the DOT that they weren't aware the cones were still there. And they were gonna look into it to see if they should be removed or can be removed. Do you know anything about that?
So I do know, just because my days are kind of messed up here, I want to say maybe I know Sergeant Zeltman saw someone out there with DOT. I didn't stop. I knew Sergeant Zeltman was talking to them, and it had something to do with the cones, but I thought it was they got a report that they were in the roadway. So let me discuss it with him, and I'll let you know, David. I didn't hear what the ending what the resolution to that was, but suppose they were out one evening. I guess it would just be last week. So let me see if I can find out from you or find out from him and let you know here.
Okay, because what I've been told is that people who are walking or bicycling are being forced into the street because of the cones that are right at the edge in this shoulder, basically.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the cones are close to that right of way area, and I think they did move them over, but then there's also sand in that small area where people would generally walk. So, I'll message him now and see if he can tell me what that was all about.
Okay, that'd be great.
Okay.
Any
Okay.
other questions for Christine?
mm-mm.
Okay, thank you very much, Christine.
You're welcome.
Okay, and next we have the Captiva Fire Chief, Jeff Powell with our fire district update.
Hey, can you give me 1 minute? As you can hear, we got a small issue here. So go to the next person and I'll come back.
Okay, and then you'll have to tell us what the issue is. Okay, next is CEPD update. I don't see anyone here at this point to give us an update from CEPD. If someone comes later, we will get the update. SCCF update, we have Ali, I believe, is here. Ali, we don't, there you are.
Yes. Good morning. Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes,
All right, so we are continuing to deal with this large red tide bloom, as I'm sure you're all aware. So the bloom is very large and patchy. So winds are shifting it around really often, which explain why some days the impacts are more intense than other days. But the bloom is sticking around and it's been moving closer to shore. So the Lee County Department of Health issued health alerts for about 10 of our beaches last week. The signage is posted, I believe, at all of the beaches. And as far as wildlife impacts, I'm sure you've all seen it on Captiva. It's been pretty awful. We've seen fish kills in the tens of thousands, and I believe that's on the conservative end because there's so many offshore that we can't see. But just in the estuary, Tarpon Bay, Estero Bay, the canals, we're seeing very large fish kills that are continuing to occur. And on Fort Myers Beach, some larger marine fauna like bonnethead sharks were starting to die, and some of our seabirds. There were some turtles offshore that died, but we're still deciding if we believe that was red tide or something else. Some manatees have been impacted. Again, we're not sure if it's red tide or propeller strikes, the usual. But the severity of the impacts and the respiratory impacts have led us to decide to request that the Army Corps reduce their flows. So I'm sure you're all familiar with the recovery flow situation. I think Matt or myself updated you on the last call. So we've been receiving an average of 2,100 cubic feet per second, a weekly average for the last couple months in an attempt to lower Lake Okeechobee for the ecology of the lake, but potentially also to put room in the lake prior to hurricane season. And we have requested that the Corps lower the weekly average from 2,100 to the lower end of optimum flows, which is about 650 to 900 cubic feet per second. So we really believe that the reduction in nutrients would positively impact this red tide bloom. We don't think it's going to make it go away because it is such a monster, so to speak. It's very large and it's been out there for a long time. But we do think it's the best shot we have at mitigating the impacts right now, because at least we won't be feeding it nutrients at such a high level on a daily basis. And it looks like the bloom is slowly shifting south, but the size and patchiness of it is just really concerning, and we're continuing to see impacts. And I'm just going to send in the chat the link to the NOAA satellite imagery. I think I've shared this before, but I find it really helpful if anyone wants to bookmark that and check out the satellite view of the bloom.
Mm,
Any questions on that?
mm.
On that in particular, or just your report?
In general, any questions?
Are you finished with your report?
That's my biggest update, just continuing to deal with red tide.
Are there any questions for Ally?
Mm-mm.
Ally, the question I think that everybody's asking, are we facing the possibility of a red tide bloom that would create the kind of fish kill that we've had a couple of years ago, which was devastating, and where the fish were on the mangroves and dying and smelling and all over the beach, et cetera? I mean, is that something that may be a possibility given the size of this red tide outbreak that you're looking at?
So if you're referring to the red tide bloom in 2018, which I'm sure is the one that comes to mind for most people, that was due to a combination of Lake Okeechobee being really high after Hurricane Irma in 2017. And the lake releases we were getting then were much higher than we've been getting. And it was also an extremely rainy January to May in that year of 2018. So we were getting more nutrients from the watershed as well. And we believe that's why 2018 was so destructive. What we're seeing so far, the cells per liter of red tide, they have been pretty variable, but once it's over 1 million cells per liter, it's very concerning. We haven't seen the cells per liter reach the severity of 2018. So we don't foresee it being as destructive, but what we have seen, tens of thousands, if not more, fish are dying, and they're continuing to die. It's not just a single fish kill event. From what I've seen, when I've looked at the mangroves near Blind Pass area, there are a lot of dead fish in the mangroves, but it also depends on the tide. So to answer, I would say it's probably not going to be as bad as 2018, but it's pretty bad.
Any other comments or questions regarding this issue? Tony?
Well, yeah, obviously we got full moon tide, so it could create problems with the mangrove. I have a TDC meeting on Thursday, and I know that they have resources. If we do get a larger kill on the beach, they have the equipment to come out and do something, but it has to be obviously pretty severe. So I'll report back on Thursday after I attend that meeting, and just to see where the TDC is, because obviously there's a lot of beach in Lee County that they have to cover, and they have the equipment, but it can only be one place at a time. So I'll just get back to you and let you know on that. Okay,
Okay, and we'll let the community know through Ken Gooderham. He'll put something out.
yeah, I'll do it through Ken. Yeah.
Okay, that'd be perfect. Any other questions or comments with respect to this subject to Ally?
Mm-mm.
No? Okay, um,
Hey, David, I have an answer for the cones if you'd like to hear that real quick.
sure.
Okay, so Sergeant Zeltman said DOT, they did get a call out, but it was about the cones just being in the roadway. So they came out and they just moved them back into the sand. If we would like the cones removed, like Sergeant Zeltman said, we could do that to be helpful. They're not our cones, but I think we are kind of in an agreement that it would be best for the cones to probably stay there, assuming they're not in the road, until the no parking signs go up.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay. Do you have a timetable for the no parking signs at all at this point?
No, I mean, I sent it on February, I think I said February 1st, and I have not heard back, so.
Okay. I think we have to have Mike Bennett ask for them because last time he asked for signs and they appeared 2 days or a day later.
I guess I'm not the one.
Okay, that would be good. I think, yeah, what are the purpose of the cones as far as you know is for no parking? Is that it?
I think initially, yes, we did put them up because the people were just, I mean, they built up that sand and people were just pulling over and parking there constantly. And with no signs being up, even though they should know that that's not a parking spot, it's hard to enforce.
Okay, thank you. And just,
Yep.
and you can just let us know if and when you have a sense of when the no parking signs will come
Okay.
up. And
All
when
right,
the
sounds good.
signs will be removed. Great, thank you. Jeff Powell is back, I believe.
Yes, sir, I am back. Good morning. How are you?
Morning,
Sorry.
Joe.
Sorry for the slight issue. Even the fire department's fire alarm goes off from time to time, but we're all good now. And yes, I would definitely agree with what Christine said about the parking. So I'm glad she mentioned it. I know it's her and mine's favorite topic around here, but yeah, when cars are parked on the sides of the road, A, it makes it very difficult for us to get around, and B, it makes it very dangerous for pedestrians and bikers and everything else. So generally, these aren't issues of anybody on this call. But if you do have contractors working, please remind them, do not be parked in the roadway blocking stuff like that. So thank you, Christine, for handling that tough task of parking on the island. I appreciate it. And I know you don't appreciate when I call you telling you to get these cars moved. So thank you.
I like having someone else to blame.
I will gladly take the blame. I do not have an issue with that. It won't be the first or last time I'm blamed for something. Second, if any of you are in South Seas or are not, just want to give you a heads up. We are training on the buildings where the cone rooms were, where we used to hold all these meetings for quite some time. So those buildings are coming down. So we're doing training there. So if anybody is in Tennis Villas or Bayside or something, and you see the truck there with lights and smoke coming out of those buildings, that's us training on those until those come down. So don't be alarmed. So. But thank you to South Seas for offering us to use those structures until they come down. So it's very beneficial training for my staff and crew. Lastly, just wanted to mention, not sure if you guys have been following it or not, the state of Florida just released their Elevate Florida mitigation program. So that application was released as of Friday. We'll put a link to it on our website as well. I know the SCCF has done the same thing. They've even offered to help residents with the application if they filling out the application if they need it. But that program is being fully run by the state. I'll just give you a quick bullet point. I'm not going to go through all of it. It's somewhat lengthy, but basically you have to be over 18, a citizen, a legal owner of the property, and be able to contribute up to 25%. It's a 75-25 program. It's meant to be a full turnkey operation. So, and part of that cost is actually relocation cost for the resident. So that program is commencing currently. So if you're in that situation, I would encourage you to fill out that application. you do not have to have previous flood damage to your home to qualify, but it will definitely be prioritized. So I'll put a link to that on ours as well. And then lastly, I know I missed the last meeting, so if there's anything you need to catch up on, any questions, I'd encourage and welcome any of those.
Jeff.
Question for both Christine and Jeff. How hard is it to get a tow truck from a town to come out and tow somebody away?
I will leave that to Christine.
So it's going to depend on what the circumstance is. I mean, obviously, if there's a crash, the sheriff's office has a rotation that we use.
Strictly
it's-
a car that's parked in the right of way, just an obstruction. It has nothing to do with an accident.
I mean, it's going to be the same thing if it's parked in a right of way and it's not an active hazard. Will we tow it at that point? We're only going to tow a vehicle if it's an active hazard. As far as timing, I mean, we can always have somebody come out for us. We have a rotation that the sheriff's office uses, so that'll never be a problem as long as we're able to articulate that it's a hazard. If it's just a typical private property tow that a resident is handling, I can't speak to that. It's going to be whether or not there's a tow truck driver in the area that's willing to take on the traffic of coming out here.
Right. And then what about inside the resort? You really don't have any jurisdiction for your contracted towing company to do anything inside the resort, correct?
Yeah, we don't handle anything within the resort.
Right. Okay.
Now that's to say if there was a serious crash or something, obviously we would work something like that. But
a vehicle that is blocking right away, causing some kind of a hazard for
in South Seas, we're not going to go in there.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I do believe Mr. Jensen had a question as well.
Yeah, Jeff, thank you. That Elevate Florida, does that help people move? If the funds are available, does that help people move if their house was flooded, or does it help them raise their house?
So under eligible construction projects, it lists structure elevation, mitigation reconstruction, acquisition and demolition, and wind mitigation. So to answer your question, I would say that would fall under acquisition demolition, structures purchased from the voluntary seller and demolished to be maintained by the local community as open space. The local community must also agree to participate in this type of project.
Okay.
So the main purpose behind it with the meetings I had with FDEM was really the first one, structure elevation, physically raising an existing structure. And it does seem to be in the meetings that I've been in. I am on the disaster advisory committee for Lee County as well. These projects have previously been under the county's purview, and then they get funding from the state. The state, I believe, felt that the process was taking too long and too cumbersome, so they decided to take that portion on themselves, and they are running the whole program from application to funding, the whole thing. So I do know the majority of that was meant for structure elevation. How much they're gonna divvy up between the buckets is hard to say. I haven't even seen them put an actual number on the project. So it's say, honestly, what your chances and likelihood are. It's a state project, and I don't know the total funds being released for it.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, that was what I was going to suggest, is that with Ken Gooderham's assistance, that at the next meeting, we give a full report, and also with Jeff's assistance on exactly how that program, which is being run by the Florida Department of Emergency Management, how that would actually affect property owners, or could affect property owners on Captiva. My understanding from what I've heard, and I don't know if it's accurate, is that they haven't selected any companies at this juncture that would actually do the lifting of homes on Captiva. But those who would be doing the lifting would be approved, I assume, by the Florida Department of Emergency Management. And I've also been told, and again, I don't know if it's completely accurate, that this process could take a year to 18 months to get it actually in effect so that people could lift their homes. And that would obviously not be done before the next hurricane season. And so that's something that we need further information on. If Jeff has it, he can tell us right now. And
I do have.
and then, so anyway, so there, and then the other issue that has arisen is there have been a number of people on Captiva who have already contracted with various companies to lift their homes. And my understanding also is that this project may not be able to reimburse those who have already engaged in some kind of contractual agreement with people who are in the process of, or will soon be lifting their homes. So those are questions that we need to get answered, because those are the questions I'm getting. I don't know if Jeff, you could respond to any of them now. Otherwise, we'll definitely put it on the agenda for next month.
Yeah, we can put it on the agenda for next month. I do have Disaster Advisory Council meeting the end of this month. And then maybe I will have some more specific answers to those questions. From what I'm told up until this point was they did not want to release the application until they had vendors already vetted through the process. They had expected to release this in December, and now here we are, February. So from what they had told us, that should have been already done. Also, projects that are previously already approved or underway would not be eligible for this program for reimbursement. But it does not list those as bullet points in the application. I personally already started the application. The application can be as long or as short as you want it. It's only a couple pages, but if you want to provide justification on your specific property, then there's a lot of documents that they would expect you to upload as far as previous repairs done, previous flooding, pictures, insurance, all those types of things for justification. So they have said, as I mentioned, it is not purely based off of previous history and or damage and or even income, but those are all questions fairly early on in the application process. So I assume they are going to prioritize based on all of those factors. So yeah, I can definitely come back and try and see if I have a more concrete option for that. Their time frame for the project was also 6 to 9 months. I don't see that being a realistic time frame. They say once you have a completed application, you should expect to receive a phone call within 1 day from a case manager. I think their timelines are very, we'll just say aggressive, but we'll wait and see what happens. But I would agree that I do not see the likelihood of your home, even if you got this grant, being completed by next hurricane season. I know people out here have met and contracted with certain vendors. I personally met with a couple on my house, and their timeline was a lot longer, unless you would have already signed up. So the process itself is anywhere from 3 to 6 months from the time they start. By the time you add stairs, decks, all the mechanical hookups. So the raising of the house isn't the long process of it, but the entire process does take time. So I would say even if you are awarded this, I would plan on going through another hurricane season of not being completed. But who knows? I could be wrong, and maybe they've got some vendors that are going to be on top of this and move, and everything will be done. So we'll see.
Yeah, Jeff, I know there are at least 4 or 5, maybe even 6 homes on Captiva that are under contract to raise their homes at this point.
Yeah,
Some have even begun. Could you
Yeah.
maybe get some clarification why there wouldn't be any reimbursement for those people who are already in contract?
Yeah. Yep.
To me, those are the people that wanted to mitigate as quickly as possible, and they
Yeah.
would, seems to me they should be supported.
I know the big issue came up. So Lee County, as well as the township of Fort Myers Beach, applied for this program through the county's funds that they had for the HMGP. The county only did a small portion. Fort Myers Beach did, I want to say roughly 30 to 40 million worth of grants for homeowners on Fort Myers Beach to elevate their structures. And that was where the initial question came from, because those houses still aren't done and funded. So the owners of those properties were like, hey, if this one's going to get done so much faster, can I just apply for this one and, forfeit the money you already approved, kind of thing? And that's kind of where that conversation started going down the rabbit hole of how they were going to do that. So hopefully they've got a little bit more information now that they actually released the application, but I'll definitely find out and see what I can bring back at the next meeting.
Hmm.
If you have anything else specifically, David, or any other panel member relating to that topic that you'd like info or discussion on at the next meeting, just shoot me an email and let me know so I can kind of be prepared for any of that and get the best answer possible for you.
Okay, I think, I thought I saw Tony had a question. Now I lost Tony. I don't see him and I don't hear him. Oh, and he's on mute, but obviously he doesn't have a question.
Of course.
Oh,
Thank you.
Any other questions on this matter? Okay. I just thought I saw something about CEPD, but I don't see it on the screen now. So the next thing on the agenda is the County South Seas redevelopment, rezoning, and legal update. But before I get to that, I think I would like to skip over, if it's all right with everybody, and just stay on the subject of hurricane-related matters, because there's some information that relates to what Jeff had spoken about. So why don't we just move to the post-storm assessment meeting survey discussion? And before we get to the actual survey, I just want to give people an update of some information I received. I was told by the Department of DOT, Department of Transportation, that there are still a number of projects that are in the works for Captiva, or Captiva-related projects, because there is funds available from the state and the county, but from the state and possibly from the federal government to do some infrastructure improvements for Lee County and for Captiva. And my understanding is that there are projects related to the hardening of the Jensen's curve, where we talked about the cones and the sand, that there is a project that's related to making that more permanent and more resilient. I've also been told that there is a project to make the Santiva right south of Blind Pass Bridge, that area south of the bridge, Santiva area, where obviously the boulders and the sand were coming over the road during the hurricane, somehow to address that in a serious fashion. I spoke with DOT, and they're aware of these projects, but they're not sure at what level they've been approved or not approved. And then I spoke with the city manager for Sanibel, because the Santiva project obviously would have to go through Sanibel, since that's on Sanibel property. And my understanding is that that is still being done by the Department of Transportation, County's Department of Transportation, with the approval or with the agreement of Sanibel. So it is the DOT that's taking the lead on both the Jensen's Curve project and the Santiva project. I've been told that that they made a decision at this point not to do anything more with Blind Pass Bridge, because the concrete they placed in the bridge after Hurricane Milton, they feel has been sufficient. So I guess my concern at this point is that there is money out there, that clearly we need to do something at the Jensen's Curve, because it's obviously vulnerable to, and everybody sees it. And with the Santiva area, because that's obviously vulnerable, and that would, if there's a problem, that would cut off access to Captiva. So what I would ask, if it's all right with folks, is that we set up a little subcommittee to work with, to contact DOT, to contact the county manager, and to work with DOT and figure out what exactly is going to be done, when it's going to be done, if it's going to be funded, and what the timetable would be if in fact these projects are going to take place and what they're going to look like, because we don't have any idea at this point what they're going to look like. So I was going to suggest, and this is just a suggestion, we can talk about it, that Tony, wherever he is, he's off the screen, that Tony and Mike Bennett and Marguerite Maville work with, form a sort of subcommittee, and I can help you who to contact on the county level, and just to get a handle on what those projects are, whether they're going to be funded, and what's going to happen with them. I think Tony and Mike would be good because they're both obviously on the Twin Water stretch, and the Jensen's Curve area is obviously the most vulnerable area on Captiva, and so I thought it would be helpful if they sort of took the lead on that, and to also work with Jeff Powell, because obviously this is of great concern to him, because when that road washed out, they couldn't get the fire engines past it. It was a real problem in terms of the conflict between people trying to get to their properties and the fire department trying to put out fires. So if that's all right with everybody, if it's all right with Tony, Mike, and Marguerite, to sort of head that up, and I can tell you who to talk to, the DOT, and also speak to the county manager, because these are projects that are in the works at some level, and we may have to talk to our commissioners to make sure they get appropriately funded. But there's money out there, and they're picking infrastructure projects that need to be done. So could we have some discussion on that? And just let me know if that's all right with people.
I mean, I'll be happy to help. I don't think I can head the committee, but I think your information that you will give us and what you want us to accomplish, or at least bring to the thing, is key. And, you know, I think basically we can do it by emails to these people. And if we have to set up an in-person meeting, my schedule's kind of tight, but I'll be happy to do whatever I can. And I don't know about you, Mike and Marguerite, but that's how I feel.
Yeah,
Mike?
I like the suggestion, and I can make myself available. Definitely very important. And I think there are some other issues too. Parts of the road on the sides are very washed out, where we need to protect the road that's there. And when it's too much washed under, the tar on the sides crumbles away. So that's something the DOT needs to be aware of, and I think they are aware of it, but it would be nice to know what their ideas are on how to fix it and when.
Yeah, Mike, is this all right with you?
Yeah, if you want to relay the information to us, I mean, I'd be glad to reach out to these individuals and at least start the ball rolling, and you know, get information to Tony and Marguerite, and go from there.
Okay, yeah, my understanding is that there are already projects. They may be engineered or partially engineered or being discussed. And I just think that the community, Captiva community, should be aware of them, and whether or not they need assistance in getting funding or whether that's not a problem. Jeff, I don't know if you've heard anything about this.
I will help in any way possible with your guys' committee. You guys have my contacts. Just let me know what you need from me. Obviously, you know, we have a vested interest in the roads being safe at all times as well. So I'll help in any way I can. I have heard of those. I've encouraged those types of projects. I don't know that my option would be the one chosen by them because it's the expensive one, but I propose they do the same thing along that stretch of Captiva Drive, same as they did on the causeway, as far as driving sheet pile and doing a concrete cap, because that's the only way to really prevent any wash under of that road. You know, dune systems with rocks, you know, what we've got now, yeah, it's something, but any good storm surge is just going to push all that riprap and sand right back into that road, and eventually will wash back under, same as it did before. So that was my suggestion. I will say, as far as funding goes, I don't know what they were looking at. There was money still unspent from Ian from DEM for hazard grant mitigation programs. But they are not accepting new programs for any of that money for Ian. It had to be just either modifications or current applications already in. So I know it wouldn't be able to come from that bucket, but they have not released that mitigation money for Helene and Milton yet. So DOT could be looking at that type of project as far as in the design implementation part of it, and then waiting for those funds to be released to put that project or those multiple projects into that bucket. So funding, I don't know which avenue they're looking. That would be my recommendation. But yeah, anything you guys need from me and I can do to help you, just reach out, let me know.
Okay.
I think it's important to know what these projects are. They may not be sensitive to the needs of people on Captiva, or they may have to be modified in some way. We have issues of beach access if they do some kind of resilience along the Twin Waters stretch there. And we just have to make sure that all the interests are properly balanced as we go forward with this project. And it's only people on Captiva that will understand how to balance these in a way that meets the needs of everyone concerned. You know?
Yeah, the good thing with the project that I proposed is it doesn't hinder any of those things along that stretch. If you've been across the causeway, you'll see you've got asphalt road, and then you've got about a 12 to 18 inch, call it a curb of concrete that's only about 2 to 3 inches taller than the actual roadway. So that wouldn't impede any natural dune system, vegetation, people walking from their houses out there. It wouldn't affect that in any way. It's not gonna prevent the road from getting washed over. We're not talking a big tall seawall type thing. It's just gonna prevent the wash under, which is the main issue with that road. So, but yeah, no, I fully agree. And again, I'll help in any way possible.
Okay, we can see why this is, why it's important, and we will pursue it and figure out what's going on. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Marguerite. Thank you, Jim.
Okay. David, Renee offered to speak for the CEPD. He was at the meeting and has information to update everyone.
Okay, if he'd like to do that, I don't see him.
Renee?
Oh, he's gonna come talk, use your computer there?
No, I just announced that you could give an update.
Hi, everyone. It's good to be back on the screen. Yeah, a couple of good facts. Great Lakes Dredging is going to mobilize in June, and the sand will pour out on Sunday, to put it in a layman's vernacular. That's what we know so far, and this was just found out last week. The Allison Hagara Park is now being fixed and modified. The trees are being removed. They apparently were always on the in the Lee County right of way and Lee County property, et cetera. And so hopefully in about a week and a half, that the wall will be built and the the park will be open for the tourists. It is season, and the revenue generation of the parking is, obviously very much needed. And then the third thing is we're just going to spread our concern to the panel. But as you know, the property next to the park where people will be going and enjoying themselves is my opinion, an immense safety hazard. The building's been condemned since November. And Susie Hendry, who's the owner, has not made any permits or, requested any permission to either demolish or send in some kind of plan to rebuild. I did call code enforcement, and they have been asking her since November to do something about it. So if the panel feels so compelled, maybe someone who could reach out to Susie to say, please do something. It's really a hazard. And, we don't want to have on our heads that some little kid going after their pet winds up getting really hurt. And we really see no rationale for keeping the place in the condition it is. So if you all are willing to reach out, I know a lot of you are friends with her. I personally would appreciate that something be done about it. I did check, and absolutely nothing on her part has been attempted to the county as far as doing something about it. So, you know, whatever y'all can do, I think it would be nice, because I don't think there's anyone there that thinks that that place should be in the condition it is. And really, it's time to move on. So, yeah. So, oh yeah, other items are, we are reattempting to deal with the Army Corps of Engineers. Apparently, the first 3 beach renourishments were funded immensely by the Army Corps of Engineers. And really nothing has changed. We still have the same easements. And so we're utilizing the man named Steve Cutler's son, Evan Cutler, to do the deep dive of research to get all the documents as to why they allowed it the first 3 beach renourishments. And since there's a new commander every 3 or 4 years, we can make a presentation as to why we should still be getting help. So hopefully that'll be a successful endeavor. But right now it's a research effort for our chairman, John Wade. So once an appointment is made with the colonel, we have our data and frame of reference. So fingers crossed on that. There is also a doubling from $50 million to $100 million from Governor DeSantis on beach repair. And hopefully there'll be some kind of Captiva capitalization on that. So we're just, taking a machine gun approach to any potential grant that might be out there to make it as a least possible burden on the taxpayers. We are also in a process of finding a bank for the bank loan. We already have been approached by the former bank that we dealt with, Synovus, and they're very eager to do business with us again. We are waiting apparently to meet the legislative mandates that we have to have our economist sign off that the process is still the same and do the apportionment numbers, which are the same. And hopefully we'll have that by March 7th. And so everything is, full speed ahead. We also have tasked Paul Tritek, who's a interim director, to reach out to Sanibel to make sure we can once again use the Turner Park for utilization and mobilization. They've always been very generous in the past and very gracious to let us use it. But we're trying to get everything prepped now. The old saying, fail to prepare, prepare to fail. So, and Linda Laird is now acting as treasurer, and she's put together some nice presentations on how we can better visualize our budgeting and putting it in each category versus just reading a QuickBooks, P&L. So kudos to her. We have a new member, Tim McGowan. Unfortunately, he didn't show up for the meeting yesterday, so we're going to try to. Well, he did. He called in at in the morning and said he couldn't make it. But I think we're going to implement a more serious regimen about when you are a government official, you have to, treat it with respect to the constituents. So we're going to get a little more strict as far as attendance goes, and excusing out, et cetera. We really want to take the CP up, not 1 notch, but 2 notches. And I can't think of anything else, but the most important fact is Great Lakes, mobilization June, sand in July. And also John Wade is embarking on a more intense dune vegetation effort after the fact, looking for extra grants. So we're not just putting in the plugs of the beach grass, but hopefully something more substantive, which should be exciting. And that is pretty much it that I can think of.
Renee, just clarify for the community, you say mobilization in June. So
Yeah.
you would start to see sand being poured onto the beach for the beach renourishment in July, is what you're saying?
What I'm saying is that, and again, according to Paul Tritek's conversation with Great Lakes Dredging, because he attended the FSBPA meeting. So this is because I asked the same question. Yes.
Okay, so it's, and when do you foresee the beach renourishment? I know you don't have exact dates. When do you see it being completed? by the
Yeah,
end?
that's, well, you know, based on experience, it's usually about 6 weeks to, and they always get better and better. They apparently have a new hopper dredge, which works quicker, but it's the same old shtick. You know, they say 6 weeks, a pump breaks, there's a week and a half. It's always been 8 weeks, sometimes 10, sometimes 7. So if we go with the averages, we're talking a couple of months.
So it will be done sometime by August, do you think?
Yeah, just in time for the next hurricane.
Yeah, hopefully.
I'm sorry.
All right, thank you very much, Renee.
My pleasure, and it's good to see everybody there. And hello, Mike Bennett. I guess you're the new member. Ciao, everybody.
Thanks.
Okay, so presumably we'll get some more detail a little later on about the exact dates, but it sounds like at least it's going to get done this summer.
Mm,
Any discussion on this, by the way?
mm.
Okay. Okay, the next thing on the agenda, I just wanted to finish up on the post-storm assessment meeting survey. We had discussed at a prior meeting that we wanted to get feedback from the community about some ideas they had after suffering through 3 hurricanes in 2 years. And Ken Goodham has volunteered to put together a survey that would go to all Captiva residents regarding their concerns and what they've learned about the hurricane and what they think should be our priorities going forward. Ken, do you want to just talk about that a little bit?
Well, it'll be the same structure that we've done before with an online survey that we would send links out to everybody to access, setting it up so that we can get multiple responses from the same IP address so that husbands and wives or family members can respond. And then I could present that to you in pretty short order after the survey closes. So I would propose putting together a draft for you to review the next meeting that we could implement shortly thereafter. My only question to you all would be, are there specific areas you want to address, or do we leave it more open-ended to try to solicit whatever is on the community's minds?
Any thoughts on that? I think, Ken, if you could speak to Jeff Powell and also with Christine or any other representative of the Sheriff's Department to see if they have any particular concerns regarding what they've learned or like to discuss with the hurricane, the Sheriff's Department, the Fire Department, and anyone else who has ideas about what the survey should include to get in touch with Ken. And then he would give us a draft survey at the March meeting, right?
Yes, and probably will overwrite the questions so that we can cut some out. We don't want this to be too long or people will not finish it. But I'd like to make sure that we're thorough enough when we start and have something that we can edit down to where we want to be. So I'll reach out to Christine and Sergeant Zeltman and Chief Powell and welcome anybody else's ideas.
And then maybe after we get the survey back, we can decide whether we want to have a public meeting to discuss the results of the survey and other discussion that people in the community might have, if that sounds reasonable.
That may depend on our timing, but yes, we could certainly do something online if not in person.
Any other thoughts on that subject? We have a very quiet crowd today. Okay. By the way, if anybody in the audience has questions or issues they want to raise, just use the chat function, and then Ken will raise it with the panel members. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is the County South Seas redevelopment, rezoning, and legal update. I'll try to be as brief as possible. On February 5th, Judge Schenko of the 20th Judicial Circuit granted CCA and Protect Captiva's motion for summary judgment, basically holding that the 2003 settlement agreement, which limited the number of dwelling units on South Seas to 912 units, and that no building permits can be issued by the county that will ever cause that number to be exceeded. He granted our motion for summary judgment and found that that agreement is clear and unambiguous, and it is a valid, enforceable agreement. So as we sit here today, the county is prohibited from issuing building permits in excess of 912 dwelling units for South Seas. That is the rule.
David,
Yes,
David,
yes.
how many units are in the South Seas plan?
Right now, there are 640 units on South Seas that are owned by people other than the new owners. And the new owners are seeking 193 condos or timeshare units and 435
Hotel rooms.
hotel units.
So you said 190?
103 plus 435. So it's something like 1,238 or something like that
Right.
over the 912.
And they were allowed 103, is that right, according to the current code?
Current code there, right now, there are 640 owned by other property owners or associations. They were entitled to, the new owners, before they purchased it, were told that they're entitled to 272 units. The 640 and the 272 equal to 912. They're entitled to 272. Instead of 272, they're asking for 193 and 435 together.
Okay.
And so under the Judge Schenko's decision, the county cannot issue permits on South Seas that would exceed 912 units. The judge also retained jurisdiction, and he wrote, he will retain jurisdiction to enter further orders and grant supplemental relief as may be necessary or proper to give full effect to this final judgment. The final judgment is no building permits can issue for South Seas over and above 912 at any time. So that is this decision that we've received, that our lawyers successfully litigated, and that binds the county at this point. The South Seas has already filed their notice of appeal. They're going to appeal it to the appellate courts on the grounds primarily that the county was not authorized to issue that agreement back in to sign that agreement back in 2003. CCA and Protect Captiva will retain appellate attorneys, as well as our existing attorneys, to do everything within our power to defend that decision. We have been told that it could take a year or even up to 18 months for that appeal to take place. So as we sit here today, that is the law of the land. Okay? The question that arises is how does that somehow affect or interact with the other legal things that are going on? This decision does not prohibit anybody on South Seas or the new owners of South Seas, Timbers or whatever, from seeking to rezone their property. What it does is it limits what the county can do in terms of issuing building permits. So South Seas is assuming they're going to appeal this and they're going to hope that they prevail. In the meantime, they are applying to the county to rezone their property to allow them to develop beyond the 912, to build 2 hotels, one at the north and one at the south end of the resort, with 435 hotel rooms combined, and the 193 condos, which would be distributed both at the north end and the south end of the resort. That rezoning application is scheduled to be heard on February 14th. That's when it'll begin. And then it will continue on February 20th and 21st, and if necessary, on February 26th, 27th, and 28th. On February 14th, the South Seas, the agents of South Seas, their attorneys, and their witnesses will present to a hearing examiner why they believe that they should be approved, the rezoning should be approved to allow them to increase that density. That presentation could take all of February 14th. We don't know for sure, but the staff of the county is telling us that they expect it to take all, if not most or all of February 14th. After they finish their presentation, the county staff will give their presentation about why, with certain changes, they agree that the application should be granted. That came as no surprise to anyone, since the county has been supportive of this application since day one back in 2021, actually. And so the county staff will then give its presentation, which would probably begin at the end of the 14th, or maybe not even till the 20th of February, and probably would take maybe a half a day. After that presentation is complete, then the representatives of the South Seas Associations, the 12 associations, their attorney, representatives of RLR, Royal Shell, their attorney, representatives of CCA, their attorney, a representative of the 12 associations at South Seas, their attorney, maybe I already said that, and representatives of the timeshare units at South Seas will also be part of the public who will present their cases as to why this application should not be granted. After hearing from the expert witnesses presented by the opposition parties and the public, who will have an opportunity to speak, the hearing examiner will make a recommendation as to whether or not the application should be granted. If the hearing examiner grants the application, which allows for density over 912, that recommendation will then go to the Board of County Commissioners. The Board of County Commissioners will then have to decide whether to accept or reject or modify that recommendation. If the recommendation is above the 912 and the commissioners approve that above 912, and there is an attempt to issue building permits in support of that recommendation or that vote, that will be enjoined by CCA and Protect Captiva, consistent with Judge Schenko's decision. It is possible that the hearing examiner, who will know about Judge Schenko's decision but is not bound by it, it is possible she will issue a decision, a recommendation that the development should stay within the 912. And then the county commissioners can vote to approve that. And then there doesn't need to be any further litigation, because all the parties except South Seas save face. The recommendation is 912. It's consistent with Judge Schenko's decision, and everybody goes home, well, not everybody, but the community goes home happy. And that could be an outcome. We don't know what the outcome is going to be. I believe, and I think Protect Captiva believes, CCA believes, and all the associations believe that 912 is the appropriate number. And it is their belief, our belief, that we can convince a hearing examiner that 912 is the number, because that's been the density limitation for the last 50 years. And the historic development pattern on South Seas is what has to be maintained by the county. So if we can convince, if the community, and when I say community, all of Captiva and Sanibel can convince the hearing examiner that 912 is the appropriate number, then this ends the dispute, because the county will then abide by basically Judge Schenko's decision, and it's over. If they approve more than that, then Judge Schenko's decision would have to be enforced against the county. So that's basically how that works. Judge Schenko's decision does not prohibit South Seas from making a request. It does not prohibit the hearing examiner from deciding how to evaluate that request. It doesn't prohibit the county commissioners from hearing the recommendation of the hearing examiner. But what we know now is until this decision is reversed, should it be reversed, that the county can never issue building permits beyond the 912. That's the lay of the land as we sit here today. The other decision that came down shortly a few weeks ago was the decision by DOA, the Division of Administrative Hearings, because at the same time all of this was going on, CCA and Protect Captiva took the position that the code amendments that allowed the South Seas to ask for more than 912 units, that exempted them from the hotel density limitation that applied to everybody else, that those code amendments were inconsistent with the plan, with the Lee plan. And that was where we had a standard. We had to prove it wasn't even fairly debatable that those code amendments were consistent. And the administrative law judge found that it was fairly debatable that they were consistent, and therefore she did not invalidate the code amendments. That is not, there's nothing in the code amendments about 912 or any number. It's just whether those code amendments that were passed by the county that opened the door for this were violative of the plan. We believe that the administrative law judge just got it completely wrong. She basically took the position that the historical development pattern on Captiva didn't apply to South Seas, that South Seas was an entity in itself, basically a black box, that so long as it functioned as a resort, the density was unlimited and the heights were unlimited. We think that flies in the face of the language of the plan, and that is under appeal also, just because it was a bad decision. But that is different and unrelated to the Schenko decision on the 912, and it's different and unrelated to the HEX proceeding that's going forward. Does that sort of make sense to everybody?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hey, David, just a question for you, and just and yeah, good explanation. But what would happen if the hearing examiner recommends more than 912 and the Lee County Board approves more than 912s? Are they still in a position where they couldn't issue more than the 912 units until the appeal has been heard?
So long as Judge Schenko's circuit court decision limiting the number of building permits that the county can issue to 912, as long as that is not reversed or overruled by an appellate court, the county will be prohibited from issuing more than 912 building permits.
Okay.
No matter what happens at the HEX hearing.
Yeah, okay.
So David, to sum, as long as the contract between CCA and the county holds, density will be limited to 912 unless they're successful on appealing that. But the Schenko decision does not impact height concerns.
Correct.
So there's nothing right now that would limit height concerns, except our argument that those height concerns would be damaging to the community or certain portions of South Seas or whatever.
And is inconsistent with the Lee plan that those are arguments that are going to be made at the HEX proceeding starting on the 14th. And that's why it's
Right.
very important for people to be there to explain that to the hearing examiner. Yes. That is correct, Jay.
Dave, does it help if the more people there, even if they're not speaking, does it help to just have a lot of people there to show support?
I think so.
Okay.
But I think that if people are constrained on time, that it's most likely that their opportunity to speak would occur on the 20th rather than on the 14th. If you want to hear what the application is, though most people know it by now, and you want to see the presentation, which will be, my understanding, a PowerPoint presentation, then it's good to be there on the 14th. I understand it's Valentine's Day and everybody's going to go out to have a nice dinner with their partner. But in any case, yes, it would be nice for people to show up on the 14th and then on the 20th and the 21st. If people can't show up and they are not going to be in town, they can sign and have notarized the authorization form and authorize someone to represent them at this hearing on the 14th to 20th or the 21st or thereafter. And that then person can also represent them before the Board of County Commissioners and speak on their behalf in the same way before the Board of County Commissioners. But if you're not there on the 14th to 20th or the 21st, you yourself cannot speak before the Board of County Commissioners. What you can do is, if you fill out the authorization form, have it notarized and email it to your representative, your agent, or to to Protect Captiva, or to any other representative. They can speak on your behalf, both on the 14th to 21st, 20th or the 21st, and then later if it goes before the Board of County Commissioners.
And on the 14th, is it just for the South Seas thing, or is it a regular? It's not a regular county commissioner meeting.
Oh, no, this is
this is strictly for this. Yeah,
only about this. That's
Got
right.
it.
And
What time does it start?
They go first.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Are there any other questions?
David, when are they putting out the information to broadcast it? Do they do it day of, or?
I don't know the answer to that, but my understanding is that there is a possibility that people could watch the hearings virtually, that it'll be treated in the same way as a Board of County Commissioner meeting. But I haven't received any information regarding what the Zoom link would be. Normally, it's a YouTube Zoom link, but we'll find that out. And but I think people can. It should be. I don't know the answer to that, Ken. I'll see if we can find it out and put it out.
All right. Thanks, Dave.
It can be
I'll
watched.
be speaking with Katie this afternoon. I'll see if she can't find out about that information as well.
That'd be great. Any other questions on this matter?
No.
Okay, it's complicated. It's you have a lot of moving parts, but we feel like we're doing the right thing, and we've been successful. But it's a long battle, and we'll see how it goes. Okay. The next thing on the agenda is the Lee Department of Transportation Jensen's curb signage update. My understanding, and maybe Mike, you can just speak to that a little bit. You're right there.
Well, I looked out the window a few minutes ago and the cones are still there, and the no parking signs are laying on the sand. So all we need is a crew to install them, I guess. And I don't know if we put something out to the universe or what, but 2 days after the last meeting, the curb signs and the golf cart signs were up so that motorists could see the curve coming up and hopefully use some caution. So that went very well.
That's great. Okay, so the next thing on the agenda says request to CCA to reserve meeting space next fall. Ken, were you involved with that? And I think maybe Mike was somehow involved in that. I'm not sure.
I had put on the agenda for Mike because he said he was going to follow up with the CCA. I haven't done that because I didn't want to step on anything he was working on.
Okay, well, I haven't worked a lot on it, but what I can tell you is that CCA is investigating appropriate technology, Zoom-based technology for meetings. Given the structure we have there, whatever we ultimately do will have to have some portability to it. And obviously, right now we have other events that have already been scheduled for this season, but next season we're definitely open to looking at the schedule for all events or community needs, including the community panel. And we'll be communicating and trying to incorporate those as those schedules are developed.
And the only thing I wanted to get from the panel was if there's a desire to have meetings in person at the CCA, we should get on their radar now so that they don't schedule something against us by accident. So by now, I mean before Easter.
And why don't we tentatively see whether we can reserve the appropriate Tuesday in each month, starting with the season, and see what their situation is.
Okay. And I know when I also spoke with somebody with CCA previously, and they were going to be looking at technology over the summer with, again, as Mike said, the goal to keep it portable enough that they can use the space for a variety of purposes.
Okay. Next is the wastewater committee update. Jay Brown.
I have little to report other than I again reached out to the city of Sanibel inquiring as of the status of their economic study of how much Sanibel should be charging Captivans for use of their wastewater facility. And I was told that the consulting study had made a report. They were not in agreement with the report and that they were working to revise it. So the net of this is, as is the story for the past many, many, many months, it's just taking a long, long time to complete these various studies that Sanibel wanted before they would commit to processing our wastewater. Okay.
Okay. There was, Ken Goodham put something out yesterday. I think maybe people saw it about some state legislation relating to sewer conversions and sewer requirements and wastewater requirements. And the county was updating the LEAP plan.
Right.
In response to that, at some point, Jay or Ken or combined, could someone just give us a sense, not today, obviously, it just came out, but a sense of what the implications of that are?
I spent probably 3 hours trying to understand that yesterday, and there's just so much terminology in there that, David, I can't figure it out. The only thing I know is that we are not on the maps of the areas that these practices are supposed to apply to. If that means something or not, I don't know. I don't know. Ken, could you're better at reading these documents than I am. Do you think you could
Yes,
kind of translate for me?
I skimmed through it, and I'm not prepared to give you anything exhaustive. Captiva was not specifically mentioned. It appears to be tied to state requirements for basin management action plans, which control runoff into various watersheds, which would include for Captiva, the river and Pine Island Sound, which I think, or Charlotte Harbor, which I think are two separate plans.
But they're not mentioned in this change to the, I don't think, to the Lee County plan. I don't think they're mentioned in it.
Yeah, but that's the driving force, and that's what I want to look into as to what did the state do that would trigger this, and what could it mean for Captiva? It may mean nothing more than they have to report on something that could be happening, and we're going to be caught up with all the other septic to sewer conversions that they would be interested in monitoring, let's say, like Lehigh Acres and North Fort Myers and all the places that would impact the Caloosahatchee. So I need to go back into that, and I'm going to do that in the next day or two because it goes before the county commissioners as a transmittal hearing
On the
for
19th.
the change on the 19th.
Yeah.
So if there's something we should be concerned about, I want to have a sense of if we need to say something to them beforehand or whether it's really more driven by state rules and the commissioners are just doing what they have to do to comply.
Okay, Ken, will you take a look at that? If you need me to take a look at it, please let me know. And just let the panel know about what your conclusions are before the 19th and whether you think we need to intervene in some way.
I'll do that.
Thank you. Any further discussion on sewers? Okay, the next thing is Stormwater Committee. Okay, I've been told that the county selected someone to do the stormwater project. I think we had heard this by rumor before, but I received an email that said that the company who's going to do our stormwater engineering plan for Captiva is Johnson, Mirmoran, and Thompson. That's the name of the company. So we were in touch with, we, the panel, were in touch with two of the other applicants, two of the other bidders, and they had reached out to us about our concerns and how to work with us if they had received the bid, but they didn't receive the bid. So the bid was received by this company, which I've just advised you of. And I think it behooves us at this point to create a sort of subcommittee for stormwater that that reaches out to Johnson, Murmuran, and Thompson and sets up meetings with the appropriate people so that they have input from the community, Captiva, regarding our concerns with stormwater. And that relates to where the major areas of flooding are, what our experience has been. We have photographs. As everybody knows, we were involved in the drafting of the proposal to do this stormwater study to begin with, this engineering study to begin with. So I would like to suggest, and people can weigh in and say no, I would like to suggest, since Jay says there's nothing happening on sewer right away, that Jay, since he has nothing to do, he's not on the panel anymore, Jay chairs this stormwater committee with Linda Laird, who was involved, with Sandy, if it's all right with her, because her properties have been a major recipient of the flooding, and both residential and business. And maybe, Jay, you could reach out to John Rosen, since he lives on Binder, which we now know is the lowest point on
Right.
and subject to flooding. So if you could sort of, and I'll talk to you about reaching out to Johnson, to this firm, and sort of begin to set up a working group with them. And if you could work with Linda and definitely Sandy, because she knows where every drop of water seems to go, and John Rosen, to figure out a best way for the Captiva community to work with this planning engineering study for Captiva. Does that make sense? Sandy, you okay with that? We can't hear you.
Sounds great. It just needs, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. We just need to know who it is we're contacting. So if you get it, that'll be fine.
Okay, that'd be great.
And then have you talked with John Rosen about this, or?
No, but I know, I talked to him, I know he's interested in it. And
Okay, all righty.
but yes, yeah, I think it's important to have somebody from Binder on this, because that's where all the water seems to go. Yeah.
Okay, David.
If anybody else wants to work with Jay on that, just go right ahead and work with him if you think that's, you have the time and you wish to do it. Okay, but that's the company, and we should be able to make the contacts appropriately. Ann Brady, Development Committee.
I do not have any updates this month. So we'll just move it along.
We're gonna put you on some other committee too. Okay. And next thing on the agenda, boy, this is a very quick meeting. The next thing on the agenda is panel members' comments. Are there any comments from panel members on issues other than the ones that we've discussed during this meeting?
There was one question from the audience that came in a little while ago that I missed for Ken Suarez. The question is, can South Seas build the condos that are going next to the South Seas Club timeshares as close to the beach as they want? There are concerns they will block our view to the ocean.
Well, they're subject to follow the state DEP guidelines where they can't go past the coastal construction control line. But other than that, they can put their buildings just about anywhere they want landward of that line. And I would expect that your view is going to be blocked at some point, unfortunately.
Well, I think the issue of block views and heights of buildings, et cetera, are subjects for the hearings that take place on the 14th, the 20th, and the 21st. And I think that if there are members of property owners on South Seas or anywhere else that feel that this is an important issue for their quality of life, that they be represented and come to those hearings. And
yeah, and the current master concept plan for the north end does show 3 condo buildings across the stretch of the old golf course.
oh, I know. Right. Well, we'll see what happens. I mean, if they're limited to 912, and that's what the hearing examiner determines and the Board of County Commissioners determines, then they will have to reconfigure their plan, and we don't know what it would look like at that point.
Yeah, David, I hear people calling me and emailing me about, about this issue and height restrictions and things like that. And, everybody should understand that, their height play was strictly for the density play. If you don't have the density and you have these multiple areas of the resort to develop, I can't see a developer, wasting money on developing a building, to 45 to possibly, 60 feet, just because they can for the amount of density that they have. I just don't see that happening, and they will spread out the development. I'm convinced of that. So,
Well, Ken, this is Jay. Suppose they wanted to build a, I don't know, just pick a number, a 90-unit condo complex. It's probably a lot cheaper to build a 90-unit condo complex as 3 30-unit stories than it is 2 45-unit stories.
oh, I don't disagree with you, Jay. I just think that, from a development point of view of where you have to remember, they've got 3 rather large plots of land for their 272 banked units, we'll call it. You've got the old Harborside hotel rooms that are on the main marina. You've got the old golf course, and then you have employee housing. So if you're distributing, 272 across there, and then even possibly Wreck Island, I think that they're going to. I just believe that we won't get. This is all hinging that the zoning application is going to get approved. That's still yet to be determined. But I think we're not going to see as tall of buildings if they're limited to a 272 density than if not. So that's just my comment, Jay.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it is
It's
my
still worth
hope-
fighting, obviously. I'm not giving up any. I'm just saying that, this height play is more about density than anything else.
It's my hope that if this application, if this development is limited to the historic development pattern of 912 units, and everybody finally agrees that that's what it's going to be, that we would have some serious conversations with the developer to make sure that people are in touch and all right with the way the development will take place, and there would be some community input and input from people on South Seas, so that it's a project that everybody can live with. But I think first we had to do is make sure that we got limited to 912 units. And if that's where we are, then we can work from there and figure this out in a good way. We'll see. Okay, is there anything else from the audience or the panel, Ken?
Yeah, one little addition. The CEPD can also clean up dead fish. And they had it scheduled before, and it looks like as if they are doing it this coming Friday.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Oh, no, Renee just corrected me. They were supposed to do it last Friday, and the guy that was given the job hasn't done it and hasn't gotten back to them, but they are planning to do it. So hopefully it'll happen sooner or later.
Okay, well, that would be good if they take responsibility for that.
David,
Okay.
one more question just came in. Which hearings are we required to attend in order to be able to speak at the upcoming hearing examiner meetings? And how long do we have to attend the hearing? In other words, what hearing dates must we attend the hearing in order to be permitted to speak?
You have to attend a hearing when it's open to the public portion. So I would say the 20th and the 21st. I think we've been told that the public will not have an opportunity to speak on the 14th. So I suspect if you come on the 20th or the 21st and you submit your name, you will have an opportunity to speak on one of those 2 days. We'll know before the 20th and we'll put it out exactly what the status of the hearings are. So we'll have a better sense of that after the 14th. It may be that the public doesn't have a full opportunity until we get to the following week because things have taken longer than one suspected. But no public person is going to speak probably on the 14th. So if you want to speak, I would say the earliest would be the 20th and maybe the 21st. But after the 14th, we'll put something out so people will know.
David, the other part of that question was the time limit. Is when we did this before, the buzzer went off after 3 minutes. Are we dealing with that again, or?
We are not.
Okay.
There is no official time limit for any speaker, which is both a good thing and a bad thing. The one will be cut off if what you're speaking about is not relevant to the hearing examiner or is repetitive of what someone else has been saying. So for example, if you're just going to say what the speaker before you said, you're better off saying, I agree with the speaker before me, and I just support that position, rather than repeating verbatim what that person said. But if what you're going to speak about is not been said before, and it's relevant and to the application, there is no official time limit, Jay.
And David, with the ability for someone to have a representative speak on their behalf, should they do that even if they're going to try to speak in person, just to be safe?
Well, if you're going to speak on person, the person who is going to speak on your behalf will remove that from that pile of of authorizations.
Okay, so if they hope to speak, but they're not sure, send the application in, and then they can be withdrawn.
Right, the authorization and your statement, and then just go up to whoever you authorize and said, I'm here, so you don't have to do anything for me, I'll do it myself. Okay, any other comments from the panel or the audience? Okay. Would you like to entertain a motion to adjourn from someone?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Anybody wants to stay on? Okay,
Great job, Dave.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank
Thank you,
you. Nice
David.
meeting, David. Thank you for your work.
Okay, take care, everybody.
Thank you, David.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. And